What would you say in your temperament or character or demeanor as being a major driver for you in terms of, the success that you've had so far with Real Food?
Oh, without a doubt, my ability to suffer. I mean, I have a very high pain tolerance. I challenge myself all the time to do hard things, and I think that lends itself well to entrepreneurship.
Hi, welcome to another interesting episode of the High Built Podcast, a podcast where I chat with entrepreneurs and professionals to tease out some of the details of their careers and how they've built their success, to figure out the people, the ideas, the processes, and the platforms that have driven that success. And today, I'm extremely excited to be talking with an entrepreneur who's been building a business for the past 10 years. And I'm speaking of none other than Affiong, who is the founder and CEO of Real Food. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Joe.
Yeah. I typically started this off like a pressure cooker. And my first question to you then is, in your career so far, what is the most impactful thing that you feel you've done?
I think persisted. I think that I would say that that's probably been the most impactful thing I've done, is that I'm staying the course, and I think it's been a very long and difficult journey. Like you said, 10 years. It's been one where the days are long and the years are short, kind of thing. So it does feel like a lot of time has gone by, but also feels very short in the history of what I'm trying to build. But persisting and really staying the course, I think, has been something that just has gotten me here. Really, I don't think if I had, quit, or had, if I'd gone any other way, we'd be where we are today.
Wow, it's so interesting to me that I ask these questions and I get different answers, and it gets better every single time. So the idea to do all of this, where did that come from?
People always find the story very interesting, but basically the idea to start this business came from my first job. I was working in South Africa and had a very comfortable, very exciting job working with entrepreneurs. And I did that for 4 years for an organization called Endeavor South Africa. And I really admired entrepreneurs. I admired the risk they took, and I admired the fact that the risk they took sort of created these outsized rewards. Like, they were not only doing well for themselves, but creating jobs, impacting their societies, etc. And I kept thinking, I want to work more with entrepreneurs. I want to work more with entrepreneurs. I want to do more around entrepreneurship. And the real thing that was nagging at me was like this idea of job creation and youth unemployment. I kept thinking, like, how could I best support entrepreneurs to create more jobs? And then the answer sort of eventually came to me that I should be the one starting a business so I could create jobs on my own. And when I went down that rabbit hole, I literally Googled which sector creates the most jobs. And agribusiness came up, and at the time, we had a minister of agric in Nigeria was Adesina. I was in South Africa at the time, but following what was going on in Nigeria, and there was this whole push and narrative for making agric sexy and bringing youth back to agriculture, and that just sort of stuck with me. And I selected fruit processing. I just went down a rabbit hole and then decided to quit my job, and told my mom, I'm moving back to Nigeria. And she didn't think I was serious, and then I bought a ticket and I came back and started, and I've been working on it ever since. So one of the things is that I've worked on this business since literally the first day I moved back to Nigeria, and I've not had any side hustle. I've not done anything else, and it's just been my focus and commitment for 10 years.
You have the most, I'll probably say, structured entrance into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so it wasn't, exactly. And I always say this, that people are like, most people start with what problem were you trying to solve? And it's like unemployment, it's really abstract and kind of absurd, but that really has been my motivating factor. And still is today. Still is something I'm trying to build. Yeah.
So one of the things that I was able to deduce from the answer that you just gave was that a lot of research went into this specific endeavor. which then brings the question, what were the resources that, kind of like helped you? Because I imagine that there was a big knowledge gap in terms of what you were trying to do. So what resources helped you get started in your journey?
So, like I mentioned, living in South Africa, where the sector dried fruit was a lot more established, I tried to glean as much as possible from how how the market was built, over there. Went to visit a couple of factories over there. I even bought products and came back to Nigeria to start sampling and selling from South Africa. So I used that, but when I got here, there was nothing to lean on. There was just figuring things out one day at a time, talking to people. I got a lot of support from people. I started looking at countries around West Africa to see what to see if the industry was more developed over there, and I found like countries like Ghana had a little bit more advantage over us, and I started learning from there. But that lack of knowledge was a blessing and a curse, in the sense that everybody thinks, oh, if you're the first to do something, you get a huge advantage, but really you don't. You first have to make your market and introduce the product and hope people like it before you can actually even win. But it really inculcated the spirit of a can-do spirit, because there was really nothing to lean on. There was no model to follow. So we created our own, and I kept I guess I wasn't shackled by the idea that it could not be done, because there was nowhere where it had failed. So I always put it on myself to try and figure things out, to try and find out how things could be done. And it inspired a curiosity and learning and problem solving that I think is one of the key, pillars of our business today, where whenever there's a problem, we just never say, oh, it's the way it is. We are always saying that is there another way it could be done? Could we learn in another way? And I think that another thing that has really helped is just been my curiosity around. There was nowhere I would not go around the world to find an answer to something. And it pays off, and it continues to pay off for us. So that's been, I would say, my learning model. And of course, having help and joining networks and just trying to glean from other people's experiences has also helped us along the way.
The ending of that question is a very nice segue into the next one, right? Which is, you can ask like entrepreneurs at different levels of their journey. One of the things that they will mention is people. So who are the people and partnerships that have helped you along the way to get to this point?
I would say the number one person is my husband, for sure, without a doubt. And my mother comes in a close second. Really, my husband is an entrepreneur himself, and so in the beginning, I learned a lot from him, and a lot of it was, I would even say, less around business strategy and more around like personal coaching, to be bold and to be audacious and to ask for things, and then obviously even up to the point of my lead investor right now was introduced to me by him, so he has been paramount in where I am today. I'm really grateful for that. And of course, there's just been so many people who have helped along the way. I think there's this idea that people are guarded in Nigeria, but I think in general, people want to help people they feel are serious and committed. And I always lead with that. And I can count very few times that people, even people I've never met before, don't know, have not been willing to render information to me. I've been very lucky with investors. I've had great investors who have helped, keep us going till today. And also just being, I think, open to feedback and being able to get feedback has also made that, people be really helpful to me. But I mean, it takes a complete village to grow a business. So there's been a ton of people I can't remember. Even some of our suppliers have been wonderful to us, giving us like credit terms without which we would not be here. It's innumerable, but I think, getting that help comes from what you're giving, in the sense that do people really feel that you're doing something and meaningful and you're serious and you're committed, and you're more likely to get help that way. Mm-hmm.
That is really powerful. Mm-hmm. What would you say in your temperament or character or demeanor as being a major driver for you in terms of the success that you've had so far with Real Food?
Oh, without a doubt, my ability to suffer. I mean, like I have a very high pain tolerance. So, but in all seriousness, it is grit, it's grittiness, and just the ability to do what I say I'll do. I'm a very I like doing hard things in my personal pursuits. I'm a marathon runner, so that kind of gives an insight into. I've run over 20 plus marathons, so I even run marathons while I'm pregnant. So I challenge myself all the time to do hard things, and I think that lends itself well to entrepreneurship. I play football, recreational, like touch American football. I definitely, and something I picked up later in life. So this idea of like just being somebody with a little bit more than average grit, I think has been very helpful to me, and really somebody who is okay with doing things in the long term. So I know that entrepreneurship in Nigeria is extremely risky. There, given the macroeconomic conditions of the country, it's always boom and bust. We're always in up and downs. There's always a period of like high oil prices, then low oil prices, and then everybody leaves and comes back. But I don't know, there's just a level of persistence. I believe that I'm the kind of person who does a few things and sees them through to the end. So that's also really, really helped, really helped me. And I think the journey of entrepreneurship itself, like, it sharpens you, so you learn to be more persistent, even where you were not initially, or where the problems that used to daunt me in the first, second, third year I don't lose sleep over anymore. The amount of money I used to think were big and like, oh my God, how would I pay this today? Like, they don't bother me anymore. So there is even as you're going through the journey, you're learning. But yeah, sticking to it, and I guess believing in the long term is something that has really really been impactful in my career.
That's great. What platforms or channels, could be an industry, could be a sector or technology, do you think has given you the biggest opportunity to showcase your creative abilities and your entrepreneurial energy?
What platforms?
Yeah.
That's a very interesting question.
I'll probably venture to say maybe it's the agricultural sector in Nigeria, but I don't want to.
I think, that's a very good question. I think what has allowed us to, showcase ourselves more, the most as a business has actually been, I would say, the novelty of the business. So the fact that we were operating in a country that this did not exist before. The impact of it, I think, has been a lot more, and we've gotten certainly a lot more recognition, and a lot more recognition for innovation, and a lot more recognition for our branding and things like that than we would elsewhere. Because elsewhere in the world, this is a very common product, and now, luckily, it's quite common in Nigeria. I'm really proud that that's something we did. We built an entire subsector of product that didn't exist before, but in the early years and the support we got, it was wow. Why are people eating dried fruit? Like, in fact, that's the feedback we used to get in the beginning. Why would I eat fresh dried pineapples when I can buy fresh on the road, or mango? I prefer fresh mangoes and all these things. And even the idea that we've been able to change people's eating habits and get them used to a different type of snack, I think gave us a lot of leverage because it just was not done and people didn't see that it could be possible. But now it's very commonplace. I think that the time we started, if that answers the question, gave us it was like opportune in the way that we got a lot more, a lot more notoriety for doing something. Now the next company that does it behind us is not going to be as special because we've already sort of built the market. But I would say that probably was the biggest opportunity for us to really showcase ourselves as an innovative business and a new product. Yeah.
All right, that is even a better answer. So then, what role? And I know like you've been in a multitude, maybe not a multitude, but a couple of roles before you founded Real Food. So out of all the positions that you've been, or even the stages of this current business that you've been, which one do you think has given you the best opportunity to show your best work? Because I know like a 1-year-old business is very different from a 10-year-old business.
Absolutely. For me, I think I'm most excited by creating from scratch. And so I think if I'm being very, very honest, the like sort of early years were very exciting for me because I had a lot more energy. I was younger, so I had a lot more energy for sure. But I love the idea of creating and building things from nothing. And now as a 10-year-old business, I can't do that as much. So kind of like my job is, my biggest strength is being able to, to look at nothing and make it something. I'm not particularly as excited about taking it to like, my investors would probably not like to hear that, although I don't mean I'm not committed to building a bigger business, but I love the idea of like starting from nothing. And now as a 10-year-old business, my job is really, as a CEO, is really around steadying the ship and making sure like a lot more people are moving in the same direction versus 5 years ago, it was about like figuring things out in real time and bringing new things to life, and that was really exciting for me. I'm not the kind of person daunted by having to start from zero. I don't mind. In fact, I thrive there. But now we're not at level 0 anymore, so my countenance has had to change, and it's really frustrating. I think most entrepreneurs will say this. When you're like in 10 years old, you can't wake up one day and just say let's change things. It doesn't happen like that. But definitely the early, like the years 3 to 5, 6 of the business where we were really innovating. And I mean, we still are, but we were really, really innovating and cracking codes and trying to outsmart Nigeria and its problems and, all sorts. So it was very fun. It was a very fun time then. Yeah.
Yeah, the analogy would probably be closer to transitioning from a foot soldier to a general.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you faced to date, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so I think I would say if I'm to pick, the biggest challenge we faced was definitely around raising funding to grow the business. And I think that came from a lot of different things. One, we had a new product, so we had to establish that this product was worth investing in, that the market actually wanted it. So that took 5 to 6 years. On top of that, you have Nigeria and its impact on your business, devaluations, recessions, and the market up and down. That really slowed us down, and then COVID slowed us down by another year. So that 9-year journey was really daunting. And I think like for most businesses, if they don't raise money at a particular point, especially a product business like ours, where you need working capital, you need, there are a lot of constraints on cash, you won't grow. And so we've been very fortunate that we've been able to raise money. But, how I overcome that was really a lot of different models. I started off trying to raise this big amount of money that nobody believed I could subsume and use. And then I started changing my strategy where I was like, okay, if I could just raise smaller amounts from individuals and small firms, to meet more realistic timelines and milestones, maybe that would help. And that started working. So instead of trying to raise like $3 million, I would go to an investor individual and be like, give me 100,000, I'll get to like 100 more stores, and I sort of changed my model to tweak what people were comfortable with investing in here. And that started working and getting us to the point where we ultimately then showed that we were growing and we're able to grow enough for, PE funding, which is what we closed last year. But it was tough and it was long, a lot of disappointment. I talked to a lot of investors. I will never forget like my best ghosting story where after I was talking to somebody who said he would be interested in investing in my business, and I was in New York running the New York Marathon. And the day after the New York Marathon, I'm like, mind you, my legs are not working, I'm exhausted and hobbling. I agreed to meet this guy, and I'm like, okay, we'll meet and we'll talk. And my husband was like, I think this person is not going to show up. And I was so mad at him. I was like, why are you so negative? I was like, you're negative, you don't believe in me. And then like 10 minutes to the meeting, he's like, sorry, I can't make it. And that was the end. And I was like, this is the worst like disappointment I've ever gotten. I was exhausted. I was in pain, and I was like, no, I have to take this meeting. And I'm building my business, and the guy didn't show up. So yeah, I faced a lot of disappointment with fundraising. It was a long journey. It was a lot of no's, a ton of no responses. But you just keep going, and you just have to keep sticking with it. And I'm fortunate that I have a positive response right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So finally, what is on the horizon for you for over the next 5 to 10 years, and what is your plan to achieve that?
That's a great question. I'm really excited about what we can build. I think, in the last year since we've raised funding and right now we're expanding our factory, we've purchased an amazing factory in Abeokuta. So that's where we're going to be moving our production to, and we're really going to be increasing our production capacity anywhere from 6 to 10 times, depending on the product of what we currently produce. So that's really exciting. It creates a lot of challenges because we have to now do a lot more work around our value chain. So getting raw materials is the biggest challenge any manufacturing company or processing company has in Nigeria. And that is going to be a challenge for sure, but it really creates an opportunity for us, I think, as a company to start. I think I'm starting to see our company more as an ecosystem builder, like somebody who is fixing the issues in the fruit value chain that the wider populace can benefit from. We're working with farmers, we're training mango farmers and fruit farmers right now. And we hope to do more of that work so that not only does the productivity of fruit increase in Nigeria, but more people can purchase quality fruit for their endeavors, right? We're processing at a scale that hopefully allows us to start serving new customer bases around Nigeria and the world. We're training youth in agri-processing, we're creating jobs. So I'm seeing a lot of growth in what we want to do, increase the number of jobs we create, increase the number of products we bring to market, increase the number of farmers in our network. So there's just a all-round positive outcome for the ecosystem. And I think as we position ourselves to do that, we will attract the partners and the people who want to see our work, appreciate our work, and want to support that work. And that for me is great because I think it still ties to my original vision, which was that if I'm an entrepreneur, I want to do well for myself, hopefully want to exit and make some money, but I also want to make sure that what I did impacted a lot more people, and I see that being the case. So again, it also speaks to us wanting to be the first and the largest. I mean, right now we are the largest, but really largest commercial fruit processor in Nigeria, and doing something that 10 years ago no one would have thought could be possible. So if we achieve that, I can leave a happy woman and I can say my job has been done.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely a trailblazer, and all I can do is just wish you more success.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for making the time out today to chat with me. I think this has been extremely enjoyable for me, and learning about your journey and some of the challenges. And guys, that is the end of another episode of the High Built In podcast. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Follow me on all socials at Juwan_IO. This has been an Afro Laser production, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.